I don't know who said we don't have a good time at LA Third Church. I'm telling you, I'm telling you. You know, before I get into the message, I want to mention this is National Women's Month, right? And I want to share just a little tidbit with you about something I ran across about a lady. Her name is Katie Geneva Cannon. And she's one of the greatest female theologians of this modern era. She wrote several books and articles on womanism and the soul of the black community. She was born January 3rd, 1950 in Kannapolis, North Carolina, a racially segregated community where she could not use local facilities such as the YMCA, swimming pool, or library. Both her parents were elders in the Presbyterian Church. She had 6 brothers and sisters. Dr. Cannon graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree from Barber Scotia College and followed by a Master's in Divinity from Johnson C. Smith Theological Seminary and a Master's and Doctor of Philosophy degrees from Union Theological Seminary in New York. She was ordained on April 24, 1974 in Shelby, North Carolina, becoming the first African-American woman to be ordained in the United Presbyterian Church, USA. As her last living testament, Cannon founded an organization called the Center for Womenist Leadership at Union Presbyterian Seminary in April of 2018, where she was later endowed and renamed. That center was renamed for her, the Katie Geneva Cannon Center for Womenist Leadership. She made her transition on August 8th, 2018. I just thought I would share something about a great black woman with you. I've had a lot of church this weekend. Yesterday, I went to a ceremony. One of my dearest friends, Elder Forrest Fikes I, was handing his church over to his son, Forrest Fikes II. This little boy, when he was born, had a lot of issues, skin issues, just asthma, a lot of issues. And he had eczema really, really bad when he was that child's age. And as you know, the apostolic the science of my church and the mind of most people are distances apart. This is not true. When that baby was that size, I always thought myself as a little, health fanatic, know how to fix stuff. His father was telling me the story, and I said, you know what? Get some olive oil and bathe that baby in olive oil every night before you put him down. So he took it a step further. He blessed that olive oil and bathed that baby down every night. You should see that young, handsome man today. What I'm saying to you is this. We may drive different cars. We may wear different clothes while we're in that car. We may listen to different music on the way to where we're going. But when we get to the heavenly consciousness of those pearly gates, the same paradise is going to be waiting for us. Doesn't matter what you call yourself, as I always say, your religion is how you live. So let's get into the message today. Sowing my seed in universal soil. The garden of life is really the manifestation of the seeds that we plant in this thing we refer to as universal soil. We are all gardens, all of us, of our resources and affairs in a literal sense as well as a spiritual sense. As a part of our daily activities, we plant, we water, we prune, we de-weed, our physical expressions and our experiences. A few of us take pride in growing exotic plants like tulips and roses and orchids. See, those plants take a little more attention than the average plant. A few of us give a lot of detail and attention to the expressions that we make. Some take time to grow organic fruits and vegetables. Some take pride in their thoughts and words to keep them free, I should say, of impurities. But most of us do hire someone else to take care of our general maintenance on our lawns and our hedges and our seasonal flowers. What I'm saying is that most of us, we keep up appearances, but we are not fully committed to the detail and spiritual harvest requires. See, no matter what type of garden that you choose to be, before you can tend to the foliage and the fruit, we must plant seeds in universal soil. Those who are professional landscapers or those who plant and grow gardens as their favorite pastime, they know that there are several, I should say 7 literal steps to successful planting or sowing the flowers and fruits that you desire to grow. That first step is preparing the soil. You see, we first have to remove all the rocks, all the weeds, and all the debris. We have to make sure that the dirt is loose and level. We got to apply the right amount of fertilizer with organic minerals, manure and compost. We got to make sure that mixture is right when we're preparing the soil. Then the next step is to prep the seeds that we're going to put in that soil. You know, you can't just buy the seeds all the time and just throw them in the ground and expect them to do what they're supposed to do. You got to prep those seeds often if you really want a good garden. You got to soak some of those seeds to loosen them up, to get them ready. You got to score some of those seeds to make sure that the shells are able to absorb the moisture and the minerals. Then after you prep the seeds, that third step, you got to strategically plant those seeds. You see, depending on the size and the purpose of your desired result, some of those seeds on top of the ground. Some of those seeds need to be buried inches below the ground. Some of those seeds can germinate on their own, but other seeds got to be planted in groups and clusters. And if you're looking for a really big plant or a tree or a huge vine to grow, you got to put stakes in the ground and allow some wires to lead from stake to stake so those big trees and vines and have something to hang on to as they grow to their full maturity. And then there's a fourth step. You got to properly water your garden. You see, moisture that's required, it varies based on the environment. You see, if the soil is too dry, it prohibits the roots from reaching out into the natural resources that it needs. But if we oversaturate, if we water too much, it deprives the plants of oxygen. So we got to have the right amount of water based on the environment in which we choose to grow our garden. And then the fifth thing, these seeds have to be properly located. You know, we have to make sure that we give them room for proper growth. We have to space the seeds so there's room to remove the weeds and maintenance our garden as it grows. And then the sixth step is we got to know what we're growing. we got to know what we're looking for. You see, we have to have some knowledge of the growth process. We need to have realistic expectations for this garden pending the situation. You see, and as the garden begins to grow, you got to pay close attention, see, because when the garden is young, when those plants first sprout out of that ground, it's hard sometimes to tell a healthy plant from a weed. Because when they're babies, they look the same. So don't give up on them the way they look in the beginning. We got to stay true to that garden process until it grows and we can see what it truly is. And then that last step, we got to care for that garden. We got to make sure we give it the proper care at the proper time. Through the different stages of your garden, different things are required. So don't overfeed them. Consistently remove the weeds from around them. And make sure they get a proper balance of water, a proper balance of nutrients, and a proper balance of sunlight. You see, these steps that I just gave you for us who choose to go outside and put a bin in or dig up an area and want to grow some stuff in the backyard, those are the steps that you're going to have to go through. But if you want to develop a spiritual garden, you're going to have to use those same steps in order to properly seed your universal soul. That first step, preparing the soil or the soul, removing the rocks and the weeds and the debris. Spiritually, you're going to have to get rid of all those negative past experiences. You're going to have to let go of fear, doubt, and disappointment. You're going to have to level that ground, meaning level that ego and that emotion. Subdue our will and enrich the soil with wholesome thoughts of spiritual truth. And we're going to have to prep some seeds before we can plant that idea. We're going to have to soak them in prayer and meditation. We're going to have to scrape away all physical gratification and reveal spiritual benefits. We're going to have to score that with them with organic, non-GMO thoughts. We don't need all that extra stuff. We need pure, non-GMO. They put a lot of stuff on food today, so you better read the package and make sure that what you're buying ain't full of stuff you can't pronounce. You see, and in this spiritual garden development, you're also going to need to have some strategic planning. Because the building of your garden is all about what? Your thinking. You got to use the power of application, but you got to use it pending the desire in the game. Make sure you have the capacity to use everything that you harvest. You don't want to have to put a bunch of effort in and have most of what you grow go to waste. So when you decide to plant the garden of your life, make sure that everything you ask for is something that you know you're going to be able to use. Don't try to do too much. Sometimes, we overload ourselves with expectations. And we got so many things we want, we can't focus on what we really need. So leave some space in your garden for adjustments. Don't plant more than your mental real estate can hold. You can put too much pressure on yourself with dreams and expectations. And then, like I said before, you got to have the right amount of water, right? That water represents potential and energy. You got to have the right amount of potential and the right amount of energy, and they have to be balanced. Because too much or too little will create weakness and negativity. You see, water can be a cleansing agent, and it also can be a drowning agent. That same water that baptizes you when you come out of the water, that same water will drown you if you stay in there too long. You see, your water represents a mass of thought that must conform to the environment that you're in. You see, a flood of negative thoughts can get you discouraged and cause you to give up. But if you plant ideas of truth, we are restored and our faith is strong. And I said something earlier that applies in this case as well. I said we have to have strategic thinking. We have to know what we're asking for. You see, when we ask for everything at once, like we often do, when you make your list, it's long. And when you get down on your knees and pray, you giving God so much to think about, he gets confused sometimes. So you got to be specific about what you want and what you're asking for, and ask for it and know it's going to be done. We tend to want things on our time. When the truth is, climbing the stairway to heaven is done one step at a time. All ideas that are righteously planted will abundantly produce in divine order. So be clear about what you're growing, because early in the process, it's hard to tell the plant from the weed. That means you have to have vision. You got to see beyond what appearances, right? You got to have vision. You got to imagine the garden that you're trying to create. Imagine the garden of your desire, and only sow seeds that are needed to reach that goal. You see, if you keep changing the goal, or you keep trying to come up with too much stuff to ask God for, you ain't gonna never reach your mark, because you're constantly changing your mark. Keep changing your mind and see how successful you become on reaching where you're going. You're gonna be doing this. You got to nurture your seedlings. You got to appreciate the small steps along the way to getting wherever it is you say you're going. And then that last thing, and I say this in all walks of life, the most important thing is self-care. That's the key to your harvest, is self-care. You got to follow the instructions on the package. You go buy all that fancy stuff and get everything ready to plant your garden, and you just go out there and go for it. But if you read the instructions, and in a spiritual sense, reading the instructions meaning obey the natural laws of this universe. There's a metaphysical application that you can apply to that written word. And when you apply that application, it's going to allow the sowing of your seed in what we call universal soil. You see, what we imagine in divine mind becomes visible by means of the creative power of the word. Of your word. When the soul becomes a storehouse of divine ideas, that Garden of Eden becomes an outer expression that will reveal our divine direction. When we plant seeds of original, universal, divine ideas in the garden in which we dwell, that garden will contain the universal power to produce everything that we need. The water, the potential of God. It'll have the nutrients, the divine thoughts and power of imagination. And it will include the sun, which is the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious working in harmony. In our text, Ernest Holmes tells us this. He says, the seed of freedom must be planted in the innermost being of man, but like the prodigal son, must make the discovery for himself. Ernest Holmes asked a question. What they call it, a rhetorical question. And he says, why is man weak, poor, and afraid when the universe is so abundant we can't begin to count the grains of sand on the beaches of life? Why are we fretting? Why are we angry? Why are we spending time disliking each other based on our skin color or our political leanings? Why is all this going on when there's so much for everybody? Everybody can have what they want, and there'll still be enough for those who want more. He's asking that question. Because he knows that we live in a world of untold riches, and the air that we breathe is vibrant and powerful. That's why he asked the question. But he had the answer too. The answer to the question is this. We lack from listening to the outside noise. We paying attention to what's going on around us, failing to listen to the inner voice that speaks a wonderful life of love beyond our dreams, that screams of a freedom which our soul craves. So he asked the question, already having the answer. So I present the question and I'm presenting the answer. We're fretting, we're worried, we're concerned. We think we don't have enough when God has given you more than you can use. You couldn't use it all, so don't ask for all of it. Ask for what you need. Ask for what's going to make you whole. Ask what's going to put you in a position to help somebody else. Ask what's going to help you, help your family achieve. Ask for what's going to help you, help your community come together. Ask for what's going to help you love your fellow man unconditionally. He reminds us that the soil or soul or subjective consciousness is forever and always working out the will of our conscious thoughts. You see, as a servant to the eternal spirit, the soul must respond in kind to the seeds that we consciously plant. It has no choice. It has to give you what you ask for. That's why I say it's important to know what you're asking for. As great as the subconscious is, its tendency is to set in motion what our conscious thought seeds into it. Our spiritual world is our conscious intelligence. Spiritual wisdom says that God manifests through everything and is incarnated in all men, that all is divine, and nature herself is the body of God. So you see, the thoughts you possess, that which you set in motion, can magnify the presence in your life, or it can hide it from your view. You can sow seeds in universal soil that are full of spiritual nourishment, or you can spread it on top of hard, parched soil void of spiritual concepts. You know, I always have to go here, right? So in the book of Matthew, there is a lot of what they call, what Jesus used to teach with, the parables. There you go. When you get 70, sometimes things leave you. Parables. And all these parables in Matthew 13 are referring to our topic, gardens and gardening, keeping your consciousness clear of unnecessary stuff. And it says, it starts out by saying, that same day Jesus went out of the house and sat by the seaside, and many people were gathered around him that he had to go up and sit in a boat. And all the people stood on the seashore. As he spoke many things into parables, and he said, behold, a sower went out to sow. And when he had sown, some seeds fell on the roadside, and the fowls came and ate it. Other seeds fell upon the rock, and where there was not enough sufficient soil, and it sprang up earlier because the ground was not deep enough. But when the sun shone, it was scorched, because it had no root, it dried up. And other seed fell upon the thistles, and the thistles sprang up and choked it. And other seed fell in good soil and bore fruit, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30-fold. And he who hears and has the ear to hear, let him hear. So he gave them that parable, and then he said, those of you who get it, I want you to get it. Matthew 13 begins with Jesus coming out of the house of an individual consciousness and sitting by the seaside of a universal subconscious mind. It says that he sat in a boat. While he was in that boat, he was contemplating an unlimited potential and possibilities of mind. He talks about seeds falling on the roadside and the fowls ate it. Conscious thought was not embodied. He said when it fell on the rock, there wasn't enough soil and the subconscious was underdeveloped and the idea couldn't take root and it dried up. It couldn't grow. Those thistles that choked the seed, those are those outside interferences that we allow to disrupt the purity of our thinking. Those seeds that fell on good ground, they were fruitful. Those were the ones the soil was free of negativity and distractions and was able to produce. He said 100-fold, which means all your promises were fulfilled. He said 60-fold, which tells us to take pride in all of our personal accomplishments. And 30-fold is when we bear witness to the spiritual energy of life, which is represented by the blood of Christ. You see, he broke it down in numbers so they could clearly understand what he was saying. Numbers in the scripture mean something. And it's up to you to find out what those meanings are. That's why he broke it down in numbers. Then he quoted Isaiah 6:9. He says, those of you who hear but not understand, and there are those of you that see but don't know. He's saying that the drama of emotion of physical living can cause you to miss your spiritual truth. Now here comes the good part. In verses 19 through 24, he really breaks it down so we can all get it. He says, whoever hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away the word which has been sown in his heart. This is sown on the roadside. That which was sown upon the rock, this is who hears the word and immediately accepts it with joy. However, but it has no root in him. You know, we get excited when we hear the preacher say something, and we start shouting and jumping for joy. But if it don't take root in you, if you don't take it outside the church when you leave, you see, he says, but it had no root in him, except just for a little while. And when trouble came and persecution came, because the word was not fully accepted by him, he didn't take it with him. So he immediately began to stumble. That which was sown among thistles, this is who hears the word, but worldly thoughts and the description caused by riches choke the word and it becomes fruitless. Worldly thoughts, I don't have to tell you what those are, and the deception of money. Some folks think if they have a lot of money, they don't have any problems. The truth of it is, those who have the most money have the most problems. Read the story of the Rockefellers or any of those Gettys, any of those super rich families that have been handed down for generations. Most of them are in a loony bin somewhere. Why you think the royal family got 10 or 15 castles? Most of them are filled with people they don't want you to know. And they got everything they could ever need or want monetarily. They got all the privileges in the world. And then he says, that which was sown upon good soil. This is who hears my word and understands it. So he bears fruit and produces some 100-fold, some 60-fold, and some 30. That's what Jesus had to say. He wanted to see, he didn't just give them parables and throw questions at them. He came back and gave them the answer to the question, kind of like Ernest Holmes. It was a rhetorical question, right? The roadside, conscious idea. You got what you think you got the plan, but you don't fully believe in what you're about to do. The rock, that's where you hear and accept it. Yeah, we clapping, we shouting, we having a good time, but our faith is weak. And when trouble comes, you revert right back to the old Jerrold. Lord, help me if I revert back to the old Jerrold. Instead of a blue suit, I'd have on an orange jumpsuit. Hey. And yeah, you're right. You're right. Those thistles, those are our worldly thoughts. That's our selfishness and our greed that blocks our blessing. So the church say, come on, somebody. But we all came here today for one reason and one reason only. Because we want to develop some good ground to sow those seeds into. We want to have a healthy subconscious mind, enriched with love, enriched with peace, prosperity, health, and forgiveness. And most importantly, free of all the regrets and the disappointments that we've had in our life. Don't take it with you, y'all. I had a conversation with a young man not too long ago who was really, really distraught. And the more I thought about him after our ordeal, the time we spent together, I kept saying to myself, I said, this brother is carrying all that stuff that happened 20, 30 years ago around today. And it's wearing him down because he won't let it go. When the air is full of potential, full of possibilities, the water has not stopped flowing. There's more water than land in this thing we call earth. So there's more potential out there. But if you carry it, oh, they left me, they hurt me. It ain't easy. I'm not trying to. I would not have a counseling profession if it was easy. So I know you got to come talk to somebody. You got to. You got to talk to somebody. But more importantly, you got to give yourself what you need. You see, when I couldn't sleep, and I decided I was not going to take a pill to go to sleep, my doctor was doing what he thought was right. Here, take these. I said, no. I got a better answer. What did I do to go to sleep like that baby goes to sleep? When I was growing up, what did we have to do before we went to sleep? We had to say our prayers, didn't we? Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray, oh Lord, my soul. You had to say something. You couldn't just go to sleep. Here Reverend Jerrold is, can't sleep. Here Reverend Jerrold talking and preaching and counseling and coaching and getting in the bed, falling asleep on the couch and dragging upstairs and just laying in the bed and going to sleep, or trying to. I said, oh, no, you got this. I ain't going to say the word, you know what, backwards. What did your mama make you do? So what did I do? I said, I don't care if I fall asleep on the couch and drag upstairs at midnight. Before I lay me down to sleep, I'm going to say a word. I'm going to spend some time in a chair quietly meditating. Then that same doctor's office that gave me the pills, one of his nurses had pulled me to the side and said, have you tried hot yoga? I said, No, I know what yoga is, but I ain't had no hot yoga. So I kept, like I said earlier, I was one of them people, I kept trying to do what? Fix it myself. And then something said, do what that woman told you to do. That was God talking to you. Start going to hot yoga on a regular basis. I still wake up now and then. You know, when you get my age, you got to get up, use the bathroom anyway. But my sleep improved tenfold, 100-fold, if not 30, 40, 50, 60-fold. I don't have the same issue. Why? Because I pray before I go to sleep. I meditate before I go to sleep. And when my week gets too busy, I go sit my butt in a 120-degree room and stretch. Sow seeds in good ground. Don't worry about the tares that are growing around. You can't pay attention to them. You know why? Stuff is going to always happen. Focus on experiences. Don't focus on them last experiences. Focus on your present, now-day experience. Because if you think about what happened yesterday, you're going to miss your blessing. Stay positive. And the only way you can do that is to bless every experience, no matter how you perceive it. You see, let the tares and the grains grow together. Because, you experience it all, the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent. Let it all grow up. Because once it's fully grown, then you can distinguish the weeds from the good stuff. And all you got to do is pull it out. Then pick the wheat and leave the weeds. That's why those directions told you that there's some proper scoring that you need to do up front. But after you plant those seeds, they have to be properly spaced because you want to leave room to get rid of the stuff that you can't use and don't want to use. The soul, our consciousness idea back of every human expression and manifestation. I don't care what happens in this world. I don't care what happens to you. It all starts with a thought. There's nothing that's ever happened, including the creation of the universe as defined in Genesis, that did not begin with a thought. And that soul, the best way I can present it to you, it's like a mirror. And it has to reflect that which we mentally show it. You see, what's obvious to us when we look at is the outer expression of the soul. But if you look at a mystical or spiritual mirror, it will reveal the inner presence and produce our expression and experiences based on that inner knowing and that inner truth, not what's going on around us. It exposes the place where the conscious and the subconscious unite with the superconsciousness, and when those three things come together, then we know that soil has been properly prepared. The inner soul is ready for those ideas. The quality of ideas that we seed into the soul then tends to reflect the quality of our life experiences. That's what you live in. You live in the life that you sowed into your soul. The universal soul, that soil, will respond in kind to ether. So that good and evil thing that you read about in here, the light and the darkness thing that you hear about here, they're the same thing. The only thing that distinguishes them is what we perceive them as. Your thoughts make it good or it bad. So when you come here to feed yourselves a spiritual diet. Collect seeds of prosperity, to collect seeds of peace and love. When this becomes saturated by spiritual truth, the spiritual garden will begin to flourish. And it doesn't matter what you call yourself. It doesn't matter your religion. It doesn't matter your culture. It doesn't matter your color. The spiritual garden will flourish in your life if you plant those seeds in ground that's free of all that you don't need. You see, this power is a great power. The power of the subconscious, the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious working together will bring forth the harvest that you desire. There will be a harmonious choir. Can you imagine this? We got great singers in here today. But imagine if there was a harmonious choir in every country, singing in every language, saying, I and the Father are one. Can you imagine that if everybody got together and that was the message that they gave everybody else? Now, I know there's some folks that believe in good spirits and evil spirits, but I'm one of those who believe that there's only one spirit. And our thoughts and our words and actions make that spirit good or makes it bad. The soul is a mirror, and it will reveal whatever you reveal to it. The soil must produce the seeds that we plant. You can't just toss them in the air and let them fall where they may. We got to place them properly in a ground free of obstructions. Your ideas must be properly spaced, watered, pruned, weeded, harvested at the peak of time in order to reveal your spiritual perfection. We must prepare the soil. We must prepare our soul with prayer and meditation. We must look into the mirror. We must see what's inside of us. Because if all you see is the earthly, material, selfish, egotistical seeker of immediate gratification, that's what your life is going to reveal. But if you see the inner reflection of unconditional love, if what you see is generosity and fairness, if what you see is faithfulness and sincerity, if you see fearlessness and an unlimited potential for your life, then you're observing a metaphysical view of the presence of God within you. Then you're prepared to demonstrate the Christ consciousness proposed to all who will accept his coming. Then you'll properly and carefully sow weeds in universal soil. Then, as the Isley brothers used to say, there'll be a harvest for the world. Another rhetorical question: when will there be a harvest for the world? When we all sing together, Isley brothers says, gather every man, gather every woman, celebrate your lives, give thanks for your children. And then they ask the question, when will there be a harvest for the world? The answer is when all come together as one people, when everybody gives thanks for all experiences, when everybody appreciates the power of a new spiritual idea. And then they say all the babies together, everyone is a seed. Half of them are satisfied and half of them are in need. When will there be a harvest for all the people? When all thoughts are good seeds and none of them are bad. They talk about love being bountiful in us, tarnished by our greed. A nation planted so concerned with gain, as the seasons come and go, greater grows the pain. As far as too many are feeling the strain. The question is asked again, when will there be a harvest for the world? The answer: when you stop letting personal gain interfere with your unconditional love. I don't care what problem you have in these United States of America. The cause of it is capitalism. Your personal gain overriding what everybody else needs. When we get rid of that attitude, there'll be less suffering. So then we gather all together. We celebrate our lives. We give thanks for our children. We gather everyone all together, overlooking none and hoping, trusting and believing that this world is going to get better. When, somebody said, is there going to be a harvest for this world? When we stop hoping and start changing your mind and make yourself better, then the world will get better. CNN can't help you. Fox News can disappoint you. But until you change your mind and start living the life that you know is a Christly experience, that's the only thing that's going to change this world. One person at a time. One thought at a time. When we have that one thought, when we act in unity, when the conscious mind and the subconscious mind and the superconscious mind unite, the Isley brothers say, then we'll be dressed up for battle and all we'll want is peace. Those of us who pay the price will come home with at least, and nation after nation will stop turning into beasts. When will there be a harvest for this world? When we stop listening to the narrative that divides us. Those on the front lines are the ones who get the short end. That beast that we refer to is a beast of material gain that's controlling the politics of this world. When will there be a harvest? When we sow seeds in universal soil. We'll reap the harvest of our dreams and our desires. But it all starts with each and every one of us. It all begins every time we sow a seed of love. It all begins when we offer a hand of peace. It all begins when we wrap our arms around somebody in understanding and forgiveness. It all begins when we realize the greatest prosperity is when we all succeed together. Tilling the soul of your mind reveals the fertile energy of the Christ. Removing all doubt and fear from your garden and bringing forth truth and faith. Providing the right moisture and potential is what we need to do. We need to give ourselves the right energy of light and the right nutrients of spirit. Then we'll be able to sow seeds. Y'all remember the Twilight Zone? I used to look at the Twilight Zone when I was little, and I thought, ignorant, judging by the content, because the show was always kind of creepy and strange. You know what I'm saying? It didn't look like a spiritual experience when you watched the Twilight Zone. You know, but you never know the truth about the producer. There was, I spoke last week with our friends over at Guidance, and I found something that was on their topic, and you know, you go online, you Google, and you search, and I found this, and it was the most beautiful piece of work I had ever experienced on the topic. And I read it, and oh yeah, I'm gonna use this. This is gonna be the core of my message. And as I kept researching online, finally pictures, a young guy over in Austria somewhere, and when I saw the picture, he had that Gothic look, you know, with the white stuff on your face, and I'm like, oh shoot, I done messed up. I don't know where this boy's coming from. But instead of, backing away, I kept reading. I'm telling you, the stuff was amazing. The people loved it. I love it. But I almost got tricked. You see, because everybody we see walking down the street with that Gothic look and all that black on and stuff, we automatically assume there's something wrong with them. And they may be the most spiritual person walking. Well, I had the same thing when I was little with Rod Sterling. I thought he had to be, some kind of, head case. Let me leave you with Rod Sterling has to say. He says, I think the destiny of all men is not to sit in the rubble of their own making, but to reach out an ultimate perfection, which it is to be had. So he's saying, don't sit in your mistakes, but reach out to perfection, which is to be had. He goes on to say, at the moment, it is a dream. But as of the moment we clasp hands with our neighbor, we build the first span to bridge the gap between the young and the old. At this hour, it's a wish, but we have it within our power to make it a reality. If you want to prove that God is not dead, first prove that man is alive and ready and willing to sow seeds in universal soil. God bless you.